What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I'm going to do a quick little update on the Veloster. I haven't really done a whole lot of work to it because I've been dealing with my son's red Audi. I still haven't gotten it squared away yet. I'm a lot closer, but I still haven't gotten it squared away. So, but I was just working on the door, trying to finish figuring out the wiring for the driver's side door so I can plumb in the other wiring. And I had to remove the power window switch, door lock switch. It's a combination, so this is the switch right here. And this is not easy to remove, so I'm going to show how much has to be removed in order just to get this one switch out. It's not easy at all. So anyway, let me show you what I'm talking about. So in order to remove the window switch is actually mounted up in here, and it's got 4 screws holding it in the corners. So there's one there, one there, one there, and one there. And they're those little bitty silver screws right there. All right. And they are coming up from the bottom, going into those little posts right there. And you can't get to them because all of this crap's in the way. So you have to remove the whole freaking arm door pull, the bracket from the back of it, because all this is blocking. This is actually sitting up in here and you can't get to the screws. And in order to get this, I was scared to death to take this out because I thought I was going to break it. But it's got 3 screws across the bottom. One there, one there, one there. And then you got to take all the other screws that are holding this on off the front and all the bolts and everything. And then you got to unclip this from these 2 clips that are on here because it actually snaps on there. And it was not easy, but got the whole thing off. And now I'm going to be able to break the switch apart and see what wires go where. But I also, my driver's side door switch is messed up. When I hit a bump, and it's a hard enough bump, the window switch would fall down and the window would roll down. I'd have to grab the window switch and pull it up real quick to get it to go back up. So this switch needs to be replaced anyway. So I know I can't be the only one that has had a broken window switch on one of these, so that's how you replace it. It is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. You have to remove the entire door panel, and then you have to remove the screws from here, remove all there's 4 10mm bolts holding this in, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws holding it on the face, the 3 on the back. And then you got to pop those clips off of this bracket and take this bracket completely out just to get to the 4 screws to take the window switch out. All right, so here's the switch actually broken apart. And this is going to be the driver's side window, passenger side front window, passenger side rear window. And I thought that the switches would have the springs in them to make them return to center, which this one kind of does. But the springs are actually in the switches. And you can see that one wants to fall down when you hit a bump. So now I just got to figure out what wire goes to what so that I can get this figured out. Looks like it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. D up, D, I don't know. I'll have to look. I'll figure it out though. All right, guys, so after testing everything out on the doors and on the main wiring harness, I figured out where all my wiring needs to go. I've got all that squared away. But now I'm getting ready to change out the rear door speaker. I've already changed out the rear driver's side speaker, but I was kind of worried about doing this rear door speaker, but I'm going to go ahead and try it and see what I can come up with. So I'm going to show you what I already have the other speaker changed out. And there's the original one that came out of that side. So now I need to take this one out and change it over to that speaker. So I'm going to drill out these 4 rivets that are here. I'm just going to use this drill bit, drill out these rivets. Once you drill the head off, it'll come off. And I'm gonna drill the head off of the 4 rivets that are in here and then pull the panel off. All right, now that I've got all the rivets heads drilled out, I should just be able to pop the speaker right off of here. There we go, speaker's out. So now what I gotta do is figure out how I can modify this to make that other speaker fit in it. Because I gotta have this mount in order to get the thing to sit in there the right way. And now I can just cut the rivets the rest of the way out. I'm not gonna drill the holes any bigger because I'd honestly like to be able to keep the holes as small as possible and reuse the original locations. So I'm gonna probably, damn it, that one broke. I was hoping the other one wouldn't break, that both of them wouldn't break, but I got one of them that's still good. Yeah, I still got the one on the top that's still good. So I'm gonna cut these out with my little Dremel and then knock them the rest of the way out. And then I'll work on getting the speaker swapped over. All right, everybody, so what I've done so far is I've actually pulled this ring off of the speaker, pulled the fun surround up all the way around. And now all I need to do is cut these braces across here, and then I'll have my adapter. So I'm gonna go ahead and snip these braces. Once I get them cut, I'll pick back up. All right, so now I have my speaker surround. I just snip the wires. If you want to reuse the plug and use an aftermarket speaker, this is how I would do it. And then you could just screw your speaker straight into this ring and then screw this back into the car. But I have to make mine to where it'll fit this speaker. So I'm gonna keep modifying this and try and get it to where that speaker will fit better. All right, guys, so I got this fitting pretty dang good. What I think I'm gonna wind up doing is I think I'm actually gonna wind up trimming this around here a little bit more because of the taper on the back of this, just to get it to seat down in there a little bit further. And then I'll, fortunately for me, the bolt holes line up with each other, or the screw holes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run a bolt with a spacer and screw it in, and should work perfect. So we'll see. All right, so I was able to get the speaker nice and tucked in there. I wound up cutting the trim out a little bit, and I cut the whole edge off the top of it so that I can make it sit flat. And yeah, this is gonna turn out really nice. The bolt holes line up really good. I'll be able to put little spacers in between there to bolt everything down in tight. And yeah, this is gonna work great. I'm probably gonna snip this the rest of the way off and just get it out of there because the speaker has its connection right here. I might leave them on there. I probably won't, because I mean, if I ever need to, I can solder onto those connections later on at some other point. But anyway, that's where I'm at. All right, guys, so this is what I wound up doing for my speaker. So I put some, this is all stainless steel hardware, but I put a screw coming in from the back, put a nylon jam nut on the base for the speaker mount, and then put a jam nut on the back side. Put a jam nut right there, and then put another nylon lock nut on the front, and then cut the studs off to where they're as close to the front of the speaker as possible. I already verified that it's gonna fit inside of the door panel. So now I'm gonna go ahead and mount my door panel back on here, and I'm done with the rear door, except for doing the wiring right here, but everything inside the door is complete. All right, guys, so what I've been doing throughout this time that I've been recording this video, I've been figuring out all the wires for the driver's door, for the Genesis driver's door, the passenger door, Genesis passenger door, and then the window switch. I figured out what each one of the wires does to the window switch for the driver's side, every one for the window switch for the Genesis side, and then the rear door, I figured out what wires were what on the rear door. So now that I've got all that squared away, I've actually figured out how I am going to do my brake lights. So the whole premise of trying to figure out what's going on in the doors is so that I can get the harness from the Veloster soldered into the wiring on the Genesis. But also the Genesis had factory turn signals in the mirrors, and I was able to isolate those signal wires. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use those signal wires and run those to the back to run my turn signals for the rear. And that's gonna give me my signal wires for those, and then I just gotta tie the ground in with the rest of the grounds. And then for the brake lights, so that I have them isolated, I'm going to daisy chain all 3 brake lights off of the 3rd brake light wire. So I will not be using the original Genesis brake light wires for the physical tail lights. I'll be using the 3rd brake light wire daisy chain to the other 3, or to all 3 of them. And then, like I said, I'll pull the turn signal wire off of both doors and run those back, because my Veloster doesn't have turn signals in the mirrors. So I'll use those turn signal wiring for the mirrors and run it to the back for the turn signals for the rear. The front's already isolated, so that should solve that issue. And so now I'm going to get in here and start soldering all these wires together. And I'll probably end the video here. I'll do an update after I get all the wiring soldered together. And I should have all the wiring soldered together and all the interior in here except for the dash in the next video. So yeah, things are still rolling along. They're not going as fast as I want them to, but this is the slow part, doing all the wiring and stuff, at least in my eyes, because I got to make sure that I pay attention to every last little detail on this wiring, because I don't want to wire up something wrong and fry circuits or anything like that. I was really hoping that I wouldn't have to modify the door wiring at all. I was hoping I'd be able to use the original connectors from the Genesis and put it in here, but that's not a reality. Plus, I need to add the wires for the rear door. So I knew I was going to have to do that, but I was hoping the front doors I'd be able to use the original Genesis wiring, but it's just not in the cards. So now I got to modify I got to hook that black connector into where the white connector is on the Genesis now and get that wired up, and then wire up my wiring going to the hatch. I've got all of it figured out. I just don't have it in my book right here. I've got it on individual sheets in the house. I started doing it before I did this notebook. So I'm going to transfer all that into the notebook. And that way, whenever I have an issue with the car in the future, if I ever do, I'll have a wiring schematic that I can reference so I know what's what. So, yeah. Appreciate y'all checking out the build. I'm hoping to have this thing running soon. The wiring is what's really going to slow me down. I got to get the wiring done, and then I got to run, I got to mount a battery in the trunk, or in the hatch, whatever you want to call it, because the battery will no longer fit underneath the cowl on the passenger side. The wheel well's too close to the cowl, and that V6 just takes up so much room. And I got to modify the shifter, and I got to modify the drive shaft. But I don't need the shifter or the drive shaft to start the car. But I still got to get the fuel lines hooked up in the front. I've got them hooked up to the gas tank, but I don't have them hooked up to the lines going to the engine. And I've still got to figure out my cooling lines and my AC lines. I'm not really worried about AC right now, but I do need the cooling lines worked out. And I'm going to have to go get the radiator that I found that will work for this core support. So, but things are moving along. Hopefully I'll be able to get this thing running pretty soon. And yeah, once I get it running, I'm going to go out and rip the hell out of this thing. So anyway, thanks for checking out the channel. I'll catch y'all in the next video. Have a great one.